Hello, everyone. I am Ande Anderson. My partner, Ike Allen, and I are the co-owners of Avaiya University. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us for this event. And we are talking with some really incredible fellow experts. We're talking with therapists, psychologists, naturopaths. We're talking with doctors, best-selling authors, and more. And they're here to help provide you with tools and strategies to help you ultimately navigate obstacles you're facing in your life and to help you experience greater happiness, peace, and joy. Today, our guest is going to talk about a really important topic, and that is about the mind-body connection as it relates to anxiety and depression. So please welcome Dr. Ameet Aggarwal. Hi there.
Hey, greetings. How you doing?
I'm doing fabulous. Thank you so much for being here, Ameet. And I know that you're a world away right now in Kenya, and we're over here in the U.S., so I really appreciate it. I'm glad the stars aligned for us and making this interview happen today.
Thanks. Yeah, it's lots of love from Kenya, everyone. I'm excited to share a very important part of anxiety and depression, gut health, adrenal health, liver health, and we'll go into it.
Absolutely. Awesome. So, Ameet, I'm going to tell everyone a little bit about you and your work before we get started. And just so everyone knows, there's a little bit of a lag in the Wi-Fi right now. So if there's a little pause after I say something and Ameet answers, that's why. So just to give everyone a heads up. So Ameet was voted as one of the top 43 naturopathic doctors, and he has helped thousands of people with mental and physical health conditions by combining naturopathic medicine, psychotherapy, and something called Family Constellations Therapy, which we're going to be talking about. In his online course, his best-selling book, and free videos are a must-have for anyone looking to heal anxiety, depression, gut health, liver toxins, adrenal fatigue, hormonal imbalance, and chronic disease. So let's dive into this. I know in your online course, you talk about treating the gut and the liver as well as the adrenals for things like anxiety and depression. So can you talk a little bit more about how all these things are connected?
Yeah. Okay. So thanks, Ande. Let's start with the basics. Yeah. So mental health is a result of brain chemical imbalances or balances, as well as perception changes due to trauma. Yeah, and just difficult experiences. So let's go to the brain chemical aspect. So we'll start with the gut. So you have a stomach and you have intestines, and your intestines are like a nice tube, a nice lining, yeah, kept healthy by good bacteria in there and good food. And over time, what happens is when you have antibiotics and all that, they go in and damage those good bacteria in this lining inside there. And your lining gets damaged and you get holes in your intestine. And that's called leaky gut syndrome. And with that, toxins go through these holes and basically aggravate your immune system, and more toxins go into your bloodstream, and that causes inflammation everywhere in your body, leading cause for asthma, eczema, arthritis, as well as mental health. And I'll tell you why. Number one, in your gut, your bacteria actually produce serotonin and GABA, the neurotransmitters required for combating anxiety and depression. And so when you destroy your good bacteria with antibiotics and birth control pill and too much medication, too much alcohol, and just certain food that you might be sensitive to, typically it's wheat and dairy, and yeah, and I'll go through a whole list later. This lining gets damaged, and then we get more toxin leakage and more chronic inflammation. And also what happens is this inflammation then causes a cortisol imbalance in the body. Yeah, cortisol is a hormone produced by your adrenal glands, and chronic inflammation requires chronic cortisol stimulation or production. So your adrenal glands get tired over time, and you get a cortisol imbalance, and that suppresses melatonin, dopamine, serotonin, and GABA, all your brain chemicals. So your food affects your mind directly through inflammation, yeah, and therefore brain chemical imbalance. That's number one. Number two is when you have all this inflammation, you get a lot of toxins in the body. These toxins then go to the liver, and your liver takes a big hit, and your liver is meant to produce bile, yeah, this juice that goes into your intestines for digestion. But when your liver is stagnant, according to Chinese medicine, you get something called liver qi, which is energy, liver qi stagnation of energy. And when that happens, your liver produces less bile. So you get more gas, bloating, constipation, indigestion, etc. So most people make a mistake of taking a laxative for chronic constipation instead of treating the liver. And I specialize in treating the liver. And the online course has a lot of remedies on that. And now in Chinese medicine, the liver is the master controller of hormones as well. So when your liver is imbalanced, you get a progesterone, typically a progesterone deficiency or an estrogen excess. And that also contributes to anxiety and depression, this hormonal imbalance, and PMS symptoms. So a lot of people experience anxiety and depression during their menstrual cycle. And it's because of this hormonal imbalance related to inflammation combined with liver stagnation. Okay.
Got it.
And then what happens is, so all this, imagine now you're getting worse digestion from liver stagnation and inflammation, and that causes a worsening of leaky gut, right? There's more damage now going on in the intestines. You're maintaining or retaining more toxins in your blood because of the chronic constipation, and your liver is not squeezing out the toxins. So things get worse in your blood. You get more inflammation and more demand for cortisol. So you burn out your adrenal glands even more, right? And that now creates more of a cortisol imbalance and therefore brain chemical imbalance and more anxiety and depression. So some people make a mistake of going for counseling all the time without treating the root cause. Yeah. So yes, counseling helps because you got to heal the trauma and the belief systems that got you sick as well. But at sometimes people's anxiety and depression is not related to trauma. It's related to inflammation and gut health and liver stagnation.
Got it. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah. It's and when you heal the gut, and I'll show everyone how to heal the gut and the liver. And I also want to talk about the effect of trauma on the adrenal system, because we talked about inflammation stressing the adrenal system and causing adrenal fatigue, but trauma as well. So when you experience trauma, whether it's abuse, financial issues, etc., you get a fight or flight response. You make adrenaline using your adrenal glands. And now all this trauma is stored in the limbic brain, in your memory. And so your body doesn't forget. So this memory, this tension in your body is constantly working on your adrenal glands to keep them ready and vigilant. And that burns out your adrenal glands, number one. Number two, when you are faced with stress in your current life, in the present time, the old trauma response is triggered, actually. So you become hyper-responsive to trauma. So children born, how do I say this? People who have a history of trauma in childhood are more prone to anxiety and depression in the future. Yeah, because it's all stored in the brain and the limbic system.
Got it.
And so the trauma itself, as well as the stored memories of trauma, exhaust the adrenal system. Now that's combined with everyday stress, financial issues, divorces, relationship issues, deadlines, late nights, not sleeping well, all that also burns out the adrenal system. So anxiety and depression from the people I've treated usually stems from adrenal fatigue combined with trauma, combined with inflammation. So in addition to healing the gut, the liver, and the adrenal system, I always release trauma as a psychotherapist. And I use EMDR, tapping techniques. I've shared all these techniques in the online course, how to release emotional pain, basically from the past, and also shift belief systems. Because sometimes you might not think you had a trauma, but your belief about yourself and the world changed based on what your mom or dad said, or based on the experience you had as a child. And that shift in perspective, that change in an identity of yourself actually contributes to subtle behaviors that might not be healthy to you and might exhaust your adrenal system, might affect your perception of yourself, so you don't like yourself so much. All these perception changes contribute to a low mood, and people mistake that low mood for an identity, their own identity. But it's not. It's, I do certain exercises where you can give back beliefs to where they belong. It might belong to your ancestors or to your father or to your mother, or your mother might not feel strong enough to withstand an abusive father, for example. So you might take on that dynamic that's ingrained in your family system. And so using Family Constellation Therapy, we help basically give back burdens that belong to the parents, or become more authentic to who you are, minus the influences that are negative to your emotions.
Got it.
So that's all the healing, the trauma part. then we're going to go into healing the gut soon.
Awesome. So, hey, quick question around beliefs. For everyone watching, what are some of the most common beliefs you see people taking on that are right disempowering them in their life that may have come from a parent or a trauma or someone saying something to them when they were young? Like what are the common ones you find?
I love that question. Okay. One is I'm not good enough,
Mm,
or I'm not worth it. I'm not strong enough, or it's my fault. Yeah.
mm-hmm.
And so, like, I'll do certain exercises. Of course, the online course has those exercises. And one of the prayers I do myself sometimes is, please let me let go of any beliefs that interfere with my confidence and self-love. People are so focused on building confidence, getting stronger. But sometimes it's not about growing something, it's about actually removing obstacles to healing yourself. Yeah, removing contributors to your low mood. And we don't recognize that we're actually carrying something that is harmful to us, information that is harmful to the spirit, to the innocent child. Yeah. And so when you look at it, rather than saying, I need to become stronger, it's like, I need to let go actually of sabotaging thoughts and behaviors that are not mine or belong to, the bullies at school or to the girl in the other class that I went to, or to my parents, whatever it is, practice letting go. And then the emotional resilience and the confidence starts to develop as well from the other way around.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate you touching on that. So yes, let's dive into the gut and inflammation and the liver and all of that kind of stuff. I think this might be a lot of the topics we do here at Avaiya are primarily based in mental health. So I'm super excited for people to understand the connection between what's going on in their physical body and then obviously what's going on in their mental body. So can we talk about that?
Yeah. Okay. So in my course, I start with about healing the gut. Well, you can do healing the mind as well and healing the gut concurrently. And there I talk about the foods that are inflammatory to the body, certain foods, like typically it's wheat and dairy, and there's other foods that I list. And you can also do food sensitivity tests. Then it's always good to heal your gut with probiotics. Vitamin D is super important for mental health. Most people are low in vitamin D. Vitamin D helps reduce inflammation in your gut. It helps gut repair. It helps improve serotonin levels. It helps with enzyme function. It helps with so many things. And then I mentioned different amino acids that are important for repairing the gut lining, improving GABA function. Omega-3s, omega-6s help soothe the intestinal lining, right? That's super important. And then in Africa, we use a lot of aloe juice. And there's other powders and products that are in the online course that mention, I guess, American equivalents to healing the gut, like what we do here. But I'm sure you get aloe juice there as well, right?
Yeah.
And then, of course, while you're healing the gut, you got to heal the liver as well, because most people's liver is stagnant. And there's special herbs. So you got to eat your bitter foods, because the taste of bitter stimulates bile flow. It stimulates your liver to detoxify. And that's super important. And then there's herbs like milk thistle and dandelion. And then I have a whole combination of different herbs and homeopathic remedies in the online course as well as the book. Most of the remedies are actually in the online course, though, that will help go in there and clean your liver out. Yeah. And also go very deep and stimulate very deep cleansing of your liver. Turmeric is excellent. Broccoli, cabbage, all those sulfur-containing vegetables are super important for certain phases of your liver detoxification. I use castor oil packs, so that's rubbing castor oil over your liver area, which is underneath your right rib cage, but never do it during pregnancy or if you're menstruating or over broken skin, yeah? So I walk people through these step by step how to do this properly. So now we've reduced inflammation, right? We've removed the inflammatory foods. We're repairing this wall, right? And we have to remove inflammatory foods because as we're repairing, we don't want to put in foods that are going to damage the intestine again. That's very important, yeah? And now as we're doing that, we're also helping the body detoxify faster. And when your liver is healthy, it produces healthy amounts of bile. And that's super important to improve digestion and keep the environment in your gut healthy for the good bacteria, which then produces more serotonin and GABA and helps with brain function. Yeah. Otherwise, you're struggling with, positive thinking and like telling yourself, okay, yes, I'm okay, or affirmations, and yet your body's struggling, right, to make the right neurotransmitters. So you can speed up your healing just by cleaning up your liver and your gut.
Mm.
Now, once that's done, remember your adrenal glands are likely wiped out from chronic inflammation and chronic stress and trauma from the past. Yeah. So here now we start healing the emotions using the exercises, certain techniques, tapping techniques, journaling techniques, etc., to make sure that you build emotional resilience. As you're doing this, it's super important also to nourish your adrenal system. And Western medicine doesn't do this. Nourish your adrenal system with herbs and supplements and the right food. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you only heal your gut and release emotional trauma, yes, you'll feel better, but you're burnt out. So you'll have trouble making the right neurotransmitters and coming into balance in your mind. So we need that oomph, that resilience. And your adrenal glands also support thyroid function. And thyroid function is super important for mental health. It helps your brain produce serotonin. It keeps your gut lining healthy. Thyroid hormones are very important to improve liver function. So by supporting your adrenal glands, you support your thyroid function. So which herbs? There's tons. There's tons of herbs, yeah?
Mm.
There's ashwagandha, there's rhodiola, there's ginseng. There's so many out there. I often use a B complex as well. And I mentioned how to use all of these in the course, yeah? And then what we want to do is make sure that we don't eat too many carbohydrates, because carbohydrates create a sugar spike, an insulin spike, then a sugar drop, and this up and down thing with sugar levels in your blood. And that actually stresses your adrenal glands, because your adrenal glands then produce more adrenaline to release sugar when you're in the sugar low, and you burn out faster. So you want to have a nice amount of protein and green veggies, of course. That stimulates a stable release of nutrients in your body. So it prevents the up and down spiking of glucose.
Got it.
And then very important also to keep your liver healthy, because your liver, so there's something called lactic acid that your body produces, right, from basically burning sugar. And now people who have a high carb diet create higher amounts of lactic acid. And lactic acid is very related to high levels of anxiety. So, and lactic acid is converted back into, I think, glucose or glycogen in your liver. Now, if your liver is stagnant, you're not going to convert very well. So you're going to have high levels of lactic acid in your body, in your blood. So you'll have higher levels of anxiety. Also, if you have a high sugar diet or too much coffee, etc., or too much alcohol, that's converted to lactic acid very fast. That will also contribute to anxiety, right? So you want to change the diet, minimize carbs, minimize alcohol, and also clean out the liver. Now, I mentioned that the liver is super important for hormonal balance, yeah? And most people don't know this, but progesterone actually helps your brain have less anxiety, because progesterone helps the neurotransmitter called GABA work better in your brain. Yeah, GABA is the anti-anxiety neurotransmitter. And if you have low levels of progesterone, GABA doesn't work as well in the brain, right? So most people are taking anti-anxiety medicines or chamomile tea or melatonin to sleep, etc. But they might have a progesterone deficiency caused by liver stagnation. So some people will now take progesterone creams and all that, but still they're not treating the root cause, right? The root cause, of course, is treating the liver, and the liver is imbalanced because of chronic inflammation. So you got to start with the gut, yeah, and then flush the liver out with detoxifiers.
Got it.
So everything is interconnected: your body, your mind, emotional trauma. Because emotional trauma stimulates and burns out your adrenal system. It changes your breathing, and the change in breath when you're tense affects your vagus nerve, this big nerve that goes into your gut. And the vagus nerve actually releases chemicals into your gut that affect your good bacteria. So if you're stressed, you release the wrong chemicals in your gut, and therefore you get more anxiety and depression also from that.
So for people watching right now who may be like potentially a little overwhelmed by like all of this stuff as it relates to like the physical body, right? Like well, I'm just thinking, if people are struggling with anxiety and depression and they want to do something like you're suggesting, right? To detox their liver, to decrease inflammation, to heal their gut, all these things. How long does it take for them to do those things? Like is it a few weeks? Is it a few days, a few months? Like how long would it take to heal someone's gut, to detoxify their liver so that they can start seeing benefits to their mental health?
Okay, perfect. I love that question.
Okay.
So the good news is, um, I've created some free videos for everyone. Yeah, that splits it up. You know, gut, the liver, the adrenal system. So it's very simple. They just go to my website and watch this free video course, right? Um, my program is a 5-week program. So I've seen great results in 5 weeks. Yeah. Some people get the results in 3 weeks because they're doing everything like systematically, right? Depends how far back you are on the health cycle, on the health scale. Yeah. And if you have a lot of trauma, of course, there's exercise that help you build up your emotional resilience. But healing the gut and the liver takes about 2 weeks.
Got it.
I recommend healing inflammation first before healing, like nourishing the adrenal system,
Got it.
because you want to be clean and detoxified before adding too much fire and support into your body. Otherwise, you're going to get a clogged up system.
Okay.
So
Awesome.
yeah, watch the videos. I promise you, it simplifies everything. It's like one video at a time. Only a video on the gut, only a video on the liver, right? And then you can get the online course, the full program, which helps raise money for mobile clinics in Kenya for poor communities. You can get that later if you decide. Yeah, but start with the free videos. It'll simplify everything and it'll change your life.
Awesome. Yeah. No,
And
thank
I
you. I appreciate
apologize.
that.
It sounds too complicated. Yeah.
No, that's great. I want to make sure that everyone's feeling like, okay, this is something I can take on. And obviously you've created this amazing course, and everybody, there's a button below this video that leads you over to Ameet's website where you can look at his videos as well as his course and all that stuff. So if you want to, take your journey to the next level as far as physical health goes, then I highly recommend that. What about homeopathy? That's another thing I know you talk about in your course and in your work. What is homeopathy for those of us that don't know, and then also how can it help people with anxiety and depression?
Okay. So homeopathy is one of my favorite medicines. Yeah, created by Dr. Samuel Hahnemann from Germany. Homeopathy is recognized by the World Health Organization. It's got a lot of negative press because people think it's placebo, but it's not. It's used by millions of people around the world. It was created by this German doctor who found out that if you use a diluted amount of something, a very diluted amount of something, let's just say onion, that diluted amount can cure the symptoms of somebody who has had toxic amounts of that same substance. So if you sniff a raw onion, you'll get watery eyes and a runny nose. So I'm simplifying, yeah? So if somebody comes in with watery eyes and runny nose from an allergy, I can use homeopathic onion, so a very super diluted version of it that comes in a pill or in a liquid, both. And that actually stimulates the body's vital force, yeah, to heal. So it's not using chemicals to suppress symptoms. It's really almost canceling out the negative, the vibration. So when you're sick, you're at a certain vibration of health, yeah? So homeopathy stimulates your vital force to overcome the disease on its own. And I love it because it's really individual. So for example, in my book, I write about different remedies for different symptoms of anxiety and depression. So some people's depression has a lot of worthlessness, suicidal thoughts, guilt, etc. Right? And that's one remedy. Other people who have symptoms of loneliness or feeling betrayed or sad or don't want to socialize, that's another flavor of depression. Some people's anxiety is more OCD, like, they're washing everything or afraid of touching things. Some people's anxiety is fear of the health of their loved ones, or fear of robbers or getting hurt. Other people's anxiety is fear of their own health, or a sense of unease within. So there's no one medicine for all of anxiety. And what I love about homeopathy is it really individualizes and understands the personality of the person, that's using the remedy. So those of you listening, if you have your unique symptoms, record them down. Get curious. Don't criticize your symptoms or yourself, because your symptoms, no matter how uncomfortable they are, they're a gift. It's your body and your mind telling you that something's out of balance and we need to heal either past trauma, a belief system that's not working for you anymore, or we got to remove a certain food and heal your gut. Yeah, these symptoms are sometimes actually helping you on your journey to your true love, yeah, self-love inside.
Mm. Mm.
And homeopathy, because it's an energetic medicine, it works like energetically. It really peels away negative influences in the body and really goes to the root cause. I even use it to heal trauma in the past. Like
Mm.
I've had people who have anxiety and depression because of a financial loss or a breakup with a loved one. Yeah. And I'll use a homeopathic remedy to heal that trauma from the past, and they will recover so much faster than just doing psychotherapy or counseling, etc.
Mm. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Right.
enlightening us about homeopathy and what that is. So I know obviously you are a doctor. I am not a doctor. Do you find that people, like, let's say people watching right now, some people might be on anti-anxiety medication, they might be on antidepressants, and I know really nothing about this, and I'm not recommending this to anybody, but I'm just curious. Do you find people who come to you and do your programs can get off of those medications or decrease those amount of medications by doing, your online course, physical healing of the gut and inflammation and all that?
So yeah, I've taken lots of people off their medication. Yeah, but in conjunction with their psychiatrist or prescribing doctor. Yeah, because support has to come from both sides, and in certain states and provinces, it's unethical to remove a client off your prescription medication if you're not in that field of medicine. Yeah.
Got it.
So yes, when people are taking my course, there's a warning in there that you might need less of your medication. So work closely with your psychiatrist to ask them if they can help manage the dosing. Yeah, because when you get better, you need less of the medication. Yeah. And especially when you treat the root cause and you feel more emotionally resilient, then yeah, you'll just start feeling better and you feel the effects of the medication a bit stronger. You'll be like, oh, this doesn't suit me well. Yeah. Now,
Got it.
most people make a mistake that they just stop the medication right away. You shouldn't do that because you have to come off it slowly. Now, because the medication actually changes your brain chemistry. Yeah, it creates we have something called neuroplasticity, the ability of the brain to make new connections. And like emotional experiences cause new brain connections. Your diet creates new brain connection. Medication as well, prescription medication, psychiatric medication creates new brain connections. And so when people stop the medication, your brain is wired in a certain way that's supported by the medication. Suddenly you stop it, those connections cannot cope, so you get a crisis,
Mm.
right? And then most doctors, well, I shouldn't say most, but some doctors scare their patients saying, oh, you see, you need this medicine. You're not good without it. And then they have this belief that they need the medication to live, which is, oh, it's such a painful untruth. I don't want to call it a lie because I don't know if it's done on purpose. Maybe it's just miseducation, but it's an untruth.
Mm.
So if you taper off, if you heal the cortisol levels, the GABA, the serotonin, etc., in a healthy way, in a holistic way, and you taper off the medication slowly, your brain has time to readjust. So it doesn't go into a crisis when you remove the medications.
Got it.
Yeah. And there's no harm. I'm not against medicines. I mean, they save people's lives. Yeah. And I've had patients who cannot come off their medication or they need it for a bit longer. And so I'm okay with that. So at the same time, it's very important to heal holistically so that when you want to taper off the medications or you need less, because when you take less medicines, you harm your liver less, you harm your gut less, you age better. All these things happen. So it's in your interest to, I'm not asking you to come off your medication, but it's in your interest to heal your body completely, to remove all this inflammation and damage to your intestines, to your gut, to your brain.
Mm. Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate you touching on that. I imagine many people watching right now might be on medication. So I just wanted to, I want to make sure that they're supported in how to move forward on that. Obviously also having a psychiatrist or another doctor that they're working with. So what about family
Very important.
constellations therapy? Could you
Okay.
tell me?
Yeah, sorry. I just want to say there is a video in the online course that's all about how I've taken people off medication, by the way, what I did to support them.
Okay.
So the course has been approved for professional naturopaths and dietitians and nutritionists. So that's why I put the video in there to help them. And if you're not a professional and you take the course, and it's open to everyone, of course, please do it with a doctor. Yeah, if you're on medication.
Got it.
Family constellation. Sorry, what was your question again, Andy?
Just really, what is that? I know you mentioned it a little bit ago, closer to the beginning of our talk here, but what is family constellations therapy, and how can that be applied to people suffering from anxiety and depression?
Okay. That's the whole day's lecture.
There you go. Oh.
Okay, so Family Constellations was basically created by a man called Bert Hellinger. He actually just passed away last week.
Mm.
He studied with the Zulu people. So he was a missionary priest, I think from Germany, and he went and did missionary work in South Africa. And learning the ways of the Zulu people, he saw, oh my God, these people, and he combined it, of course, with his own training in psychotherapy. He says, wow, these guys have a certain way of living and certain belief systems that are actually super healthy. So, like, for example, in a family system, if the father is absent or traveling a lot or went to the war, etc., the mom might create a bond with the child, a stronger bond, because of the absence of the father. So, but this bond, even though you see it as natural, it could be unnatural because it's different than if the parents were in a healthy relationship and together. So now this child develops a loyalty towards the mother, a preoccupation. And so in adult life, unknowingly, they won't be fully ready for a full committed relationship, perhaps, or they might be busy, they're just not fully open or free. And that can create, of course, emotional disturbances. Family constellations looks at these imbalances, energetic imbalances in a system, using a very, very special technique. And this sounds like voodoo, but it's like really the fastest growing psychotherapy in Europe right now. It's done all over the world. And what happens is, I, as a therapist, will have representatives, people helping me out. And I can also do it psychically and energetically. What happens, I'll ask the client, okay, to pick somebody to represent the mother and the father, or their emotional issue, or an aborted child, a miscarried child, whatever it may be, and or somebody who abused them. And so I'll have like 3 or 4 people in a circle representing these elements of a person's life. Now these representatives actually channel in or connect, with the information that belongs to who they're representing. I know it sounds out there, but it's unbelievable. I mean, governments are using this technique. I studied in England further, and I don't want to say who, but like some big names are now using this at the government level. So anyways, as the therapist, I watch the dynamics of these representatives. I can see, aha, you know what? The mom is looking away from the father and just staring at the child. So there's too much of a preoccupation there, right? So the child is glued to the staring of the mother. And when you get the parents to face each other, when the child, let's say the child is the client, so you're the child. When you see suddenly the parents facing each other, you're like, oh my God, mom has a partner. You take a deep breath, kind of like you feel like, okay, now I feel a bit relaxed. So it's something happening in the background that we're not even aware of, right? And that's affecting our mental health big time. I've had a lot of people who have had miscarriages and abortions, and sometimes we're not taught about the importance of these aborted souls. And so and I did this experiment myself, and I held an aborted child like a representative, and I connected to a deep loss, a deep, deep loss for myself, and I cried. And so I don't think we're educated well enough on the importance of honoring a passed on child, saying goodbye to it properly and thanking it for coming into our life, even though it was very brief. And speaking of aborted or miscarried children, also, not only if you're a parent of one, but if you're a sibling of one. So if let's say you think you're firstborn, but there was a child before you who was aborted or miscarried, and you don't know that, I've seen a lot of people with anxiety and depression because of that. And when I get them to recognize the child who was before them in their system, and I get my clients to actually feel their real position in the family system. Yeah. So family constellations is about the orders of love, like making sure the parents are responsible for their own stuff, and also being in the right position in your family system. So when I get my client to feel that they're second in place in the family system, not the first child, they're like, oh my God, this feels more correct for me somehow. I get in touch with a truth about myself, right? It's beautiful therapy. It's the best therapy that, like in addition to healing the gut and all that, like I've done Gestalt psychotherapy, but family constellations therapy just takes it to another level. It really treats the root cause because, I mean, every therapy helps, yeah. And at the same time, if your troubles are because of a missing child, or because your mom put her sadness onto you, oh dear child, look how bad dad is treating me. Suddenly you feel burdened by that, even though it's out of love. When your mom feels, hey, this belongs to me, you're a child, this does not belong to you, I can handle it, it's not your fault this happened. You almost get a permission to live your life. Yeah, and if that's the root cause of your anxiety and depression, well, it's better to heal that root cause than try and invest only in positive thinking or try and convince yourself not to think of those thoughts, because that's exhausting for your nervous system. Yeah, it's like forced change, which doesn't really change the internal mechanism of your soul.
That's a beautiful point. I've never thought about that before. You just brought something up for me, because I almost never think of it, but my mom had a miscarriage before she had my brother, who's my older brother. So if she or he would have come to be, then in theory she would have had my brother and probably not had me, because they didn't want a third child. So I've never ever thought about that in that way. That's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So anyone watching
And that's
right now,
very deep.
yeah, like, and if anyone watching right now is also kind of connecting those dots, that's a very interesting thing to kind of connect into the journey of anxiety and depression also. So I appreciate you mentioning that. That's really powerful.
Yeah, and you can even say a thank you to that child: because of you I live, or
Right,
something like
right.
that, right?
Yeah.
Acknowledging that, and then you're more connected to that child, and you have more grace in your life after that sentence and that statement.
Mm, yeah,
Does that
that's
make sense? Does that
beautiful.
resonate?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. I love
Thank
that.
you for letting me work with you on the spot, though. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. I've never ever really given that much thought. So that was a really amazing point. So amazing. So Ameet, I want to make sure that everyone knows there's a couple buttons below this video that lead over to your website. You have a course, you have a book, you have all sorts of things. So can you share a little bit about all of that and how people can work more further with you?
Yeah. Okay. So I do online sessions, Skype sessions around the world. I have a course that's raising funds for mobile clinics, so I came back to Kenya from Canada to do mobile clinics for poor communities. So, and that's my dream, to go back there. And so I do that by selling the course and my book. And my book's been a bestseller on Amazon about 8 to 10 times now, because it helps heal the gut, the brain, the liver, the mind, and release emotional trauma. My online course has been approved by naturopathic boards, CDR as well. That's the one that controls dietitians and nutritionists in the US. So it has a lot of good information in there. So I'd love your support to help me continue my work and to share this knowledge and to further my training in constellations and emotional healing. Yeah, because I'm writing books on transforming the mind, and all this is possible when you buy the course and support me on my journey, and also help community, of course, in Africa. So I really appreciate it.
I love it. Thank you so much. And everyone, again, there's buttons and links and all sorts of things below that where you can check out Ameet's work and learn further about that. So are there any last insights, anything else you want to touch on or leave people with before we wrap up?
Get the book for sure, please, because it'll help with the online course. Number one. Number two is, if you're overwhelmed with all this information, just go and watch the free videos. It'll simplify everything. And really, I'm sorry for like just going off on a tangent with everything.
No, I loved it.
The
I
free
mean,
videos will clarify that.
yeah, no, we talked before this class about my background's in nutrition, so I know a lot of those terms. But for people who don't maybe know a lot of the lingo as it relates to gut health and adrenal glands and all these kinds of things, yeah, absolutely, go like watch those videos further to get a better understanding of all of that and the language and everything. So thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Good. And love is medicine. That's the other thing. Self-love. Yeah. So don't blame yourself for feeling anxious and depressed. Actually, embrace your, I know this is easy to say, but it's difficult to do, is because I suffered a lot from anxiety, depression, breakups, suicidal thoughts, etc. Is get curious about your symptoms and observe them rather than criticize them. Observe them, see where they're coming from. Does this belong to an emotion in the past, or how do I feel when I change my diet? So you get closer to more pure balance and more self-love.
Awesome. Love is
Lots of
medicine.
love.
Thank you. I appreciate this. And everyone, thank you so much for tuning into Ameet's class, and we will see you on the next one, everybody. Take care. Hey everyone, I just wrapped up another great class with Dr. Ameet Aggarwal, and he talked with us about the mind-body connection as it relates to anxiety and depression. So I really love this topic. Mind-body connection is a big part of my life, a big passion of mine. And if you aren't familiar with how the body and the mind connect, I hope that this was a really enlightening class for you today. And if maybe you're already interested in this topic, hopefully it helped you even more in your journey. So a couple of big take-home messages for me were really the last thing that Ameet talked about, which is love is medicine. Right? Self-love, self-compassion, being kind to yourself, all of that is medicine. It truly is. So, he recommended that you get curious, write down the symptoms you're having, write down thoughts you're having, write down experiences and feelings that you're having as it relates to anxiety, if you have it, as it relates to depression, if you have it, or any other things that you're dealing with right now. And just recognize that it's your body way of telling you something is imbalanced. That's what it is. That's what those symptoms are. And don't ultimately judge yourself for those symptoms. Just be kind to yourself. Take a look at them really from an observer perspective instead of a judgment perspective. And remember that love is medicine. Also, just heal holistically. When he said that to me, I was like, oh, yes, this is it, right? We all need to heal holistically. Our bodies are connected to our minds are connected to our bodies. So all of this, whether you are, sound in the science of nutrition, like he was talking about, all sorts of different things, whether that's of interest to you or whether you know anything about it or not, the body and the mind are connected. All of the ways that our body amazingly does the things it does for us are also connected to how we feel, and how we feel is connected to how our body works. So if you're interested in, pursuing these topics further, I highly recommend you check out Ameet's work. And the last thing I wanted to say was what he said about this, loss of a child as a sibling. So for example, I had shared with him that my mother had a miscarriage before she had my brother. So I am child number 2 and my brother was the first child, but in what he was saying, I actually had another sibling that was before that was a boy or a girl, I'm not sure, and that was the oldest child. So that just kind of struck me. I've never thought about that before as having an effect on the child order and what it might be like for my brother being the first child, but really maybe the second child in that scenario, and me having potentially had an older sibling that, because that older sibling did not come to be, I was born because my parents were not planning on having more than 2 kids. So I just thought that was really fascinating. So where in your life can you reconnect the dots to things in your life such as that maybe you haven't explored, and how does that affect your life today? How are your emotions, your moods, your anxieties, things like that, how are those affected by things that happened as a child that you're still holding on to? Or maybe it's just something you haven't examined, like I haven't clearly in that scenario. So just wanted to make a quick mention of that. Hope you enjoyed this latest class, and we will see you on the next one. Thanks, everybody.